Hey, all right. We are back in the Smucker's Grape Jelly Studios here in Chicago for Freelance Month, continuing on Freelance Month on Chokehold the podcast. And we have none other than marvelous Matt Nix with us, the grand poobah, if you will, of freelance. So welcome aboard. Welcome back, I should say.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, you were on episode 186. We looked it up before, and now we're up to episode 410. So it has been a while. So in one way, it feels like it was like 2 months ago when we last had you on. And then in some other ways, it feels like it was like 10 years ago because of the way 2020 has been. So so much has changed, obviously. I don't want to spend too much time talking about COVID and about 2020, but so much has changed since you were on in 2019 with us. So how did COVID affect you as a promoter? How did it affect the promotion? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but how did it affect freelance in general?
Oh, I mean, it affected us, you know, as much as it affected every other wrestling company or everything else in the world. You know, we kind of had to shut down and just like scrap every single plan we had and just wait. You know, we were all just waiting to see what was going to happen. Like, is this going to blow over in a couple months? Like, you know, as we all kind of thought, but later saw that was not possible. And
right.
You know, just as we've seen a lot of independent companies find safe and doable ways of running shows during the pandemic, it just to me, and with what I was able to kind of have at my disposal, like it seemed like a lot more work and a hassle than to try to, you know, potentially put people at risk. And I was just like, you know, I would feel a lot more comfortable just like waiting. I was like, I'm in no rush. You know, I know a lot of other people are just like totally okay with just waiting and just, you know, hoping that we can have normal shows at Logan Square again one day. And, you know, we had tried to do some sort of like warehouse shows at the Pro Wrestling Tees Freelance Academy. And just like every time we had put something planned, it just, you know, COVID struck again, and it was just like things getting worse and worse. Just timing wise was not a really good fit for us, and I was just taking the precautious route of just kind of being, you know what, let's just cancel it, not try to like force this thing to happen, because I would much rather look like an idiot for trying to plan something and not working than somebody gets sick and like potentially dying on my watch.
Would doing like an empty arena, is anything like that even feasible? Like an empty, I know you tried doing like what you're talking about was doing like the empty warehouse show where you guys were it was gonna be kind of like a telethon type of thing setup, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, we had a couple matches that we were just gonna like stream live on IWTV, and I put up the PayPal link, and I was like, hey, if you want to, just PayPal money to this account, and whatever we get from this, I was like, I'm splitting this evenly between everybody that's wrestling and, you know, the auxiliary talent as well, like referees, commentary and all that stuff. And you know, we were going to do that, and then the show got canceled because of that's when we had the stay-at-home order and just Pritzker shutting down the state. And you know, we had thankfully a lot of people still like just an outpouring support of just like, you know what, we're gonna send you guys money no matter what, because I think we ended up streaming like a past freelance show, an anniversary show, I think. And or no, I don't remember what we did. We just streamed an old show, and I live tweeted it, and I was like, oh, we'll make it a fun little thing online, and just you know, and people still donated a ton of money.
Yeah,
Ali donated a bunch of money, and Heidi Lovelace did, Ruby Riot, sorry. And so it was cool to see that just people were so like willing to just like support these wrestlers that like a lot of them just, this was their livelihood that was just up and gone, you know, almost overnight.
Right. So is like doing, like, for instance, just spitballing, could you do something at Logan Square and film it and just live stream it and try to, charge whatever, $5 admission, like to watch it live on Fight TV or something? Is that even feasible?
It, it, the thought did cross my mind, but I just think that the building would not do it for free. It would just be like, at that point, I'm already in the negatives, to do it. And it's just like, I know a lot of other companies are just like, screw it. We're going to go ahead and just like do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, normally I would, but like, even so, like the shows themselves are just like, kind of self-contained as far as like how much money they bring in. And, with the pandemic being what it was, and, just like, oh shit, I got to like really make sure I got like money for my own bills and stuff too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, we're getting closer. I mean, with the vaccines coming, and I think we're getting closer. I don't know if it's going to be, what we've talked about before is like, the Friday night Logan Square, everybody's drunk, partying, wall to wall people having a blast. I don't know if we're going to get to that immediately. I mean, I think down the line we could eventually get back to that point, but I think there is a way that you guys will be able to pull off shows later in the year, following the guidelines, social distancing, less tickets, spreading people out more so, and things like that. I think hopefully by summer it's a realistic possibility, I think.
Yeah, I'm remaining hopeful, at least because, like you said, with the vaccines kind of getting out there, and I think definitely at first, people will be a little leery, maybe, about going out and just being around people.
Sure.
Or it might be the opposite, and people are just gonna be like, "Fuck it, let's go do things."
I gotta get out.
And Logan Square will be rocking just like it was before. Like, I think people are just like anxious and eager to kind of just socialize in general with people.
Right.
So I think not only like freelance, but I think almost every wrestling company might see an influx of people, just like maybe not even wrestling fans, just saying like, oh, look, I just want to go out and do something. And they might have overheard somebody say something about a wrestling show, and they're like, I don't even like wrestling, but I want to go see that now, like just to get out of the house. And
I gotta do something. Yeah,
it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be like another wrestling boom, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so too. So before we pivot, because I don't want to spend the whole show talking about COVID, but how do you feel? How do you feel AEW and WWE, the bigger promotions? How do you feel they responded? How was what they did to pivot and stay alive and survive through 2020? How do you feel the two groups did? Do you think one did considerably better than the other one, or both about the same?
I mean, I definitely commend both companies for like figuring this out on the fly, basically, because it's not like an independent company where we can just be like, all right, we're gonna take a pause for like a year, guys, bye. It's like this is a multi-million-dollar companies with like so many like people on salary and just like television deals and sponsorships and stuff. It's nothing that you can't really just pause. You literally have to figure out a way to generate content. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you might be liable to lawsuit or something. I don't know, but I think both companies have done like a really good job as of late. I know at first WWE had some kinks they were working out. I don't think people were probably taking it as seriously as they probably should have. And I mean, again, like this is something brand new to everybody that we don't know what the right way is, and we're learning as we're going. And but I think the way that AEW was doing it, from what I heard from people that were going down there and stuff, that it was like very safe, like almost overly cautious to a point that I was like, okay, well, that's good then. At least they're taking so many extra steps to make sure that the people that are coming in and out of those tapings are safe. And and I think also like these shows created such like really entertaining stuff, like for what we were able to have with no live audiences. Like the pandemic gave us the Boneyard match, that some people loved, some people hated. I thought it was like incredible. It was like a cinematic fight, you know, something different. I was like, this could even be what wrestling becomes at one point,
Yeah, I feel like each of the shows are like they've had so many cinematic, like the Stadium Stampede was one of my favorites out of those too. So I think all of like the major promotions are going to continue to rely on things like that. So I think you're right. I think they learned something from it that they'll carry over and keep going with the promotion. So anyway, so speaking of I know we haven't spoken since you had your match with Cody Rhodes. and that was roughly just over a year ago. Tell me how that came about. That pop had to blow you away. That reaction to the fans in Chicago, or well, outside of Chicago at Sears Center, that had to blow you away. So how did all that come about?
Yeah, like it's funny, like that literally felt like a decade ago. And
Yep.
It's funny too. Like I have friends that like laugh about this, that like I legitimately sometimes forget that happened. And like people will bring it up and I'll be like, oh yeah, that really did happen. And I
Yeah.
probably should remember that. Like,
Yeah.
But no, it was cool. Like I was there with a couple other guys, like Castro was there, Kenny Sutra, Robert Anthony was there, of course. And we were just there doing extra work. You know, I made the contact through when we were having signings and stuff at the store. QT Marshall was there, and he's kind of like in charge of booking extra talent. And I just kind of made back there. I was like, hey, like if you ever need bodies when you're here in Chicago. I'd never done extra work for WWE before, but I was like, oh, I'm interested to try this since I kind of know a lot of people there and I'm comfortable around a lot of them. And so we did All Out. Before that, we were the Dark Order minions, the original ones. And so then when we came back for the second time, they were just kind of like, oh, we need somebody to wrestle Cody. And then they're just like, hey, like Knicks, like you've been wrestling for a while, like you want to do it? And I'm just like, yeah, sure. Like just like chuckling. And he's like, no, we're serious. And I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I'm down, I guess.
Sure.
Like, and just like wasn't really like nervous, like, and just like I talked to Cody, he was like, oh, you know, he very much like, oh, hey, thank you so much for like, you know, agreeing for doing this. Like, I think like for some reason, you know, he doesn't have to like even like talk to me
Right.
at all, but he's just like, thank you for being here and like and helping out. And so it's super cool. And he's just like, oh, is this like the, you know, biggest crowd you've ever wrestled in? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, obviously, like it's pretty cool. And I wasn't nervous at all until like we got out there. I got out there and I'm standing at ringside, and then his entrance starts and there's like these giant fireballs coming up.
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, I can feel the heat on my body, and I'm just like, oh shit, this is real. And but then it kind of went away really quick. And when we circled in the ring and I heard like the freelance wrestling chant, and we both we legit both just stopped, looked at each other, and like looked at the crowd, and he kind of like just smirked and gave me a nod, and I was like,
yeah,
I was like, oh, I don't know why I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh. And then yeah, that was, the match was like super quick, which I was like, yeah, the easiest match of my life. I was not nervous at all about the wrestling part, but yeah, no, it's funny because afterwards he's just like, oh, he's like, freelance is pretty over in Chicago, huh? And I'm like, I guess, yeah, like,
yeah, that was cool. I mean, that was one of the only shows, only AEW shows that I haven't attended, and watching it on TV, it was just a great reaction. I was really happy and proud in a weird way. I was proud of that kind of reaction from that crowd for you being out there. So it had to be, like I said, it had to be a cool moment for you once it all kind of settled in.
Yeah, like everyone's like, oh, like that's so cool you got to wrestle Cody, and I'm like, no, that was cool, and I definitely like appreciate that opportunity like 100%. But like but hearing the crowd, you know, however many people were actually chanting it, but like just hear it in an arena like that, something that I created, you know, people kind of giving their praise and respect towards, like it's probably going to be at least top 2 moments of my career always.
Exactly. Like, very cool. So yeah, like I said, as a fan, it was really cool to watch. So, you know, coming back from like what we were talking about with the pandemic before, I noticed that you've had a lot of different endeavors, creative endeavors that you've jumped into since the downtime, basically, for freelance. So you're doing your own podcast now too, right?
Yeah, occasionally.
So interviewing other wrestlers, or what's the format of your podcast?
So the format is, there is absolutely no format.
Oh, okay.
Which is, you know, super unique to other podcasts, I'm sure. And it's literally like it wasn't even supposed to be just like wrestlers, but it just so happens that like most people I know in my life are wrestlers.
Yeah.
But just like, I don't know, like, you know, interesting conversations. I always joke around with friends where I'm like, you know, we always like we're hanging out, you know, or just like leaving a show, and it's just like we just somehow fall into like a really good conversation. and we always joke around like, man, like we should have like recorded that. Like that would have been a really good podcast. And I'm like, well, here we go. We're going to force it now. And, but I've had like some of my friends like outside of wrestling in, and I had my dad on, which was pretty fun. Like he was an interesting interview. I wanted to get my grandpa before he passed away, because that guy for sure had some crazy stories. But it's really just kind of like, I don't know, just interesting people. Like some of the stuff we did, like that I've done. I'm doing an episode tomorrow that's very specific to like, hey, we're just gonna be talking about ghosts and like weird stuff that's like unexplained, and just he's a very big skeptic for all that stuff, and I'm like obviously like over believe in everything, so we're gonna be like definitely butting heads the entire time, but I'm like, that'll be fun.
Counterpoint. Yeah, cool, excellent. So all right, we're gonna take a break. Time's up on Facebook Live. If you're watching the Shooting the Shiznit page on Facebook Live, switch over to YouTube. You will see the link, and stay with us. We're taking a quick commercial timeout. We're going to pay some bills, and we'll be back with part 2 with Marvelous Matt Nix right after this. All right. We're not really taking a break. He edits in the commercials afterwards. So
nice.
All right. So hang on. There we go. Okay. So coming back from break, we were back with Marvelous Matt Nix with the purple little thing on the microphone. So I was going to ask about purple. What's the you have started doing a Prince gimmick, and everything is purple. And I don't know that I think I've seen a couple shows, since everything went down, where you've actually done the Prince gimmick. So what was that? Where did that all come from?
I mean, it's a good question, actually. It really kind of just stemmed from like, I always like would when I was coming up, like my tag partner was Kenny Sutra, and we never wore matching gear. We never had matching gear, and he had purple tights, and I'd always been like, you know what, like one of these days I'm gonna get a pair of purple tights made so we can match and like finally like actually look like a tag team. And it just like never really happened. And then just, I would say like like maybe 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I'm gonna, because we were, this is when we were a part of Beta together, and I had that like black gear that I had that was like almost like a bodysuit, and so I had gotten a purple exact replica of it, but purple made, and I was like, oh, like now we can match with purple. And around that time, I had found that gaudy purple jacket that I have. Like I found it at a secondhand store somewhere, and I saw it, and I was just like, I don't need that, but at some point I will. and I saw it. I just had to buy it. It spoke to me, and it just sat in my closet for the longest time. And then I think it was Stevie Fierce was just like, dude, you should just start wearing it. Like it's a cool jacket. Just start wearing it. So I just started wearing it to the ring, and just kind of like, like it would just like it matched, so it worked. And then I kind of like did some stuff with it in Canada where I was just like, I put it on and it would make me like supercharge, and I would get like almost like it's like Popeye with the spinach kind of,
right,
when I would get the jacket on and stuff. And then just jokingly, I was like, oh, I should just like come out to Purple Rain. And then it just kind of like caught on at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's always, they always say like when you find like your wrestling character, like it just feels so like natural, and that's just that's just who you're supposed to be. And like I've always like, it's funny because like purple, like I wouldn't even have said was one of my favorite colors like ever. And, I mean, I always liked like maroon and like silver and stuff like that, but like purple's always been a really nice color. Like it's a beautiful color. And I kind of was just like, oh, I'm gonna like really lean into this purple thing. And just like I've kind of just like really kind of gotten into like liking the color purple. And it's just like I just feel more comfortable, I guess, as like whatever the heck I am. Like you said, Prince, and I was like, that's probably like I draw inspiration slightly from Prince, slightly from Michael Jackson, slightly from what the heck's his name? uh I can't remember his name now, but it's the guy who sings the "I Put a Spell on You." Um,
I don't know.
I don't remember his name, but he's I've seen like a bunch of his like concerts and stuff, and he just like the way his mannerisms are and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh, like that's really fun, and that would be kind of like fun to like kind of implement in a wrestling character. And a little bit of Errol Flynn too, the actor.
Okay, that out of left field. So, all right, cool. So you mentioned Stevie Fierce. Actually, I have that on my list of notes here. Where is Stevie Fierce? He was like one of my all-time favorites in freelance. Is he still in the business?
No, he quietly stepped away from wrestling and then just quietly stepped away from everybody's lives. So
Wow.
not
He
in a, he didn't die or anything, but he just
right,
like
right.
he's just kind of doing his own thing.
I when I was doing the homework for this, I was finding some old matches and just stuff with you and him and Castro and his partner Matter at the time. I mean, God, some of that stuff, the chemistry was just outrageously good. And I know you guys kind of all came up together. So you had that built-in chemistry. So how is that just a function of that? The fact that you guys had all worked together for so long and you kind of all learned how to wrestle together?
Yeah, no, I think so, definitely. We've known each other. We've actually all known each other since like before when we like came up doing backyard wrestling when we were kids, like when we were like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
We've known each other, and just the amount of time being around each other and just wrestling each other and just being friends with each other, we kind of just we know what the other person's almost thinking when we're out there, and just
Hmm.
like, you know, if like that, if you get smoked by that person, like they hit you hard, you're just like, that sucked, but you know, it probably looked good and it's okay because it's your buddy.
Right. So you guys have now you have Freelance Academy. How long has Freelance Academy been a thing, a school?
I think like at this point, like almost 2 years now, I would say like maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years close.
And
Um,
who are some of the trainers?
right now, the two trainers are Isaiah Velasquez and Bryce Benjamin, aka Jesus Bryce.
Right. And so if people go to Freelance Academy, what are they getting? Are you guys teaching everything from beginning to end? Are you guys doing like, managers and referees and the whole nine yards, valets?
So right now, like obviously just like definitely like wrestling, like all the way from the basics all the way up to like advanced stuff. We do seminars constantly. Like Ali drops in classes like all the time.
Nice.
Um, Aiden English is a constant drop in on classes. Cabana was for a while before the pandemic, and
Hmm.
but obviously people are kind of distant now. Um, but also we did start doing like referee training and stuff, but it kind of just is the same as wrestling training.
Hmm.
We teach them how to bump and run the ropes and stuff, just because it's better to know it and not have to use it than to not know it and have to be taking bumps and stuff as a referee or a manager.
Hmm.
But I think once we figure out like more curriculum and stuff like that, I think we're gonna try to figure out more geared stuff towards managers and things like that nature.
What about promos? Is there somebody doing like a promo class for these guys?
Not yet. We kind of just like practice. They practice when they're there,
Yeah.
and practice on their own. But I think I would definitely like to do that. Like my goal with the academy is the same path, that I took with freelance. Is just like I want to have a company that gets good exposure for people that I believe deserve it. Not that me personally, but just like the original idea for freelance was helping people that I think weren't getting exposure that
Hmm.
they needed to get that exposure. Now there's a ton of different wrestling companies out there that are helping people do that, and that's amazing. Um, but with the school, like I feel like a lot of wrestling schools are just teaching just wrestling, but I
Hmm.
want to like create this like environment where we have wrestling training, we have like you said promo class, we have stuff like I want to have like Cabana and like Marty DeRosa come in and teach like improv and stuff to the kids, because I feel like learning how to improvise during a match is very important as well.
Right.
And it basically just kind of make like a small version of the performance center, if that
Hmm.
just to kind of give back like the best that we can um to people that are coming here to train.
Yeah. I mean, and to that end, that was one of the things I was going to say. You're talking about how important it is for you to get the kids ready to hopefully move on and go to the next level. You have barely ever been a champion in freelance. The old, old saw in wrestling is the promoter is the champion for, 6, 8, 10, 12 months, whatever, 3 years, the Vern Gagne that's always going to be the champion at some point. So you've rarely ever held a title. I think there was a tag team run for a little while with you and Castro, and that was about it. You've never been on top. So is that obviously by design? You kind of take a back seat to everybody else to get them over, right?
Well, I want people to come to the shows, so. But no, I never really thought of like, obviously, like, people, like they say, like the whole trope of with promoters kind of putting themselves over, and obviously, like any wrestler is like, oh man, I totally wish I was getting these matches, and I literally have the power to put myself in good matches, but I'm just like, I know that's not helping everyone. Like, it's helping me, and that's literally only helping me. But if we put together a great card that is potentially getting more eyes on it because of it collectively, then it's helping everyone individually as well, like getting more exposure rather than just helping myself selfishly.
Yeah, it's not self-serving I mean, it's something as a longtime wrestling fan, it's something you're just not used to seeing, You're used to seeing Stephanie McMahon in a prime role or Greg Gagne in a prime role, you're not used to seeing the promoter. Like, if people didn't know, they would never know that you were the promoter. You know what I mean? Like, if people didn't understand freelance and how it worked and everything, just watching a show on TV on a stream, they would never know. So we've talked about, you've mentioned Ali, and you mentioned Sally Stitches, Heidi Lovelace, all the various names. So give me, who are you the most proud of? Like, of people that have come through. There's got to be a lot of names of people that have come through. We just saw Elyana Black get signed. So there's got to be so many people that you're proud of. If you could single out one or two, who are the ones that you're the most proud of?
I mean, gosh, there's probably so many. I mean, I guess like off the top of my head recently, like you said, Elyana Black for sure. Like, student from the beginning. I've known her since she was like 15 years old, and training and coming to help out at freelance shows and setting up, and literally just always being the one to be like, okay, we did this. Now, what else can I do to help? Like, always constantly asking. Always just like busting her ass to get out there and wrestle as much as she can, and doing all this stuff, getting everywhere, going to GCW, and now getting signed and being in WWE, and already wrestling like in the women's Dusty Classic. Like, that is incredible. Ali for sure. I've known him for my entire career, and for him to kind of like come into freelance at a time when we were like kind of really up and coming, and just take the belt and just elevate not only the belt but freelance as a company, and I think the Chicago wrestling scene as a whole, maybe, and just get a lot of eyes on this area, and just people being like, yo, that's a place I want to go. That, as a fan, as a wrestler, he did a lot to help freelance kind of grow in those early days, and I'm proud to see everything he's done, even if I felt he was being underutilized in WWE, but now, like, it's in the role he's in now, I'm just like, it's incredible. Like, he's really showing his chops, and I think he's going to be a star at some point.
It's weird. It's weird for me to see him as a heel. I could never. He was like a John Cena level babyface for me, and I mean, the fact that he's pulling it off and he's doing good heel work is amazing to me. It just goes to show how versatile the guy is. So, and obviously we knew he had the in-ring, but I just, like I said, I mean, it reminded me of like when people would always complain, like, when are they ever going to turn John Cena? John Cena needs to be heel. I'm like, knowing the backstory, especially with Ali, I'm like, no, do not make him heel. Don't fuck around. Just leave him alone. He's great as what he's doing. So, but he's doing great as it is right now with the heel persona. So we talked about, you mentioned a couple other promotions in Chicago. How is, what's the relationship with you guys with Warrior? I mean, you guys are always at the shows. You've worked some of their shows. I feel like, as a fan, you always want to be like, oh, they're going to be at each other's throats. Freelance is going to hate Warrior and vice versa. But I feel like there's definitely diplomacy there. You guys definitely work together, right?
Oh yeah, like Steve, the principal Steve. He actually reached out to me like prior to them running their first show, and just kind of being like, hey, like, this is what we're doing. any advice? Like what can we do? Like, do you like, and he asked about doing something with Freelance on the show to kind of help bring publicity locally, at least to their show. And I'm like, yeah, no, absolutely. Like I believe in what he's doing as far as like raising funds for kids to go to school. Like that's super important. And I'm all for that, even if it is Marian Catholic, who was they were our rival band in high school in marching band. They were the John Cena's of marching band.
There we
go. But no, they're great over there, and they just run such a incredibly professional show.
Yeah.
That I just appreciate as a wrestler and as a promoter, just to kind of see it all come together is really awesome. And they're just super awesome people.
Yeah,
that are in charge over there.
I think there's room for both. As a fan, as a pure fan, I think there's room for both. Plus, you guys are on completely opposite sides of the city, the Chicagoland area, so I don't think there's any going to be overlap or anything. I think it's cool that you guys are peacefully coexisting. One of the things I was going to mention is how you've done, there's been a lot of themed freelance shows, like Freelance versus CZW, Freelance versus the World, the Gimmick Battle Royal. So could you see a Freelance versus Warrior type of scenario, like an interpromotional type feud type of deal, working with them at some point once everything gets back to normal?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm always open to working with people, provided that it's beneficial for everybody involved. But no, that would be something that I would definitely be interested in pursuing.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think, once everything gets back to normal and there can be, feuds going back and forth, and you got to come to the Freelance show to see these Warrior stars and vice versa, bring Pillman and, whoever they've got working for them at the time. And then you guys are all in the Chicago area anyway. So you guys working down there. So I think it'd be a cool thing to extend that relationship. So I wanted to ask about, we've talked about some of the celebrities that you've brought through, quote unquote, wrestling celebrities that you've brought through. What is the typical negotiation? I'm not going to say, like, tell me some of the big names that you've brought through, because we know like Jeff Cobb and, Thunder Rosa and all these big names, Michael Elgin, you've had so many big names come through Freelance. What is a typical negotiation to get, say, a Jeff Cobb to come in and work a shot for you guys? How does it go?
I mean, usually it's if it's somebody that I know, and most of the time it is, I'll kind of just like shoot him a message on Facebook or Twitter and just kind of be like, hey, how are you? First of all, like I always kind of just, because I hate when people message me and they're just it's straight to business, and I'm just like, ooh, so I'll probably like start a conversation and then just be like, hey, like, so we're doing a show this day and just thinking about having you on there, think you'd be available, and just kind of like that. Usually it's very easy, like
casual.
Yeah,
let me just check my calendar and see if I'm free that Friday. So cool. Anybody that, again, we've talked about names of a lot of celebrities that you've brought in. Anybody that you had a rough go with that you wouldn't bring back?
Gosh.
Difficult to work with.
Well, he brought up the name Michael Elgin earlier, so he was definitely a little difficult to work with, and
okay.
I think difficult to be around in general. That's all I'll say. I mean, people like that, I guess, are just like, I like to, not that I'm like some sort of social justice warrior or something, and just like, but like, I think a lot of it came to light during this pandemic was the speaking out movement. A lot of people kind of just like showed their true colors of being, real pieces of shit. And, I just would like to do my best in the future to not have those kind of people on our shows, because like Freelance has always been such a loving and inclusive environment.
Right.
And like, there's no room for people like that. Like, I mean, not to get specific, but like, people like Joey Ryan, who I don't think will ever have a career in wrestling again.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely will not see him at a Freelance show in the future. And which, I mean, he was a semi-regular guy on the shows. So, it's unfortunate that, he is the way he is, and he, devastatingly hurt these women. But we won't talk too much about that.
So okay, so we know that to answer the question, there's a couple that you wouldn't bring back. So how is Kylie Rae? Kylie Rae came up through freelance, and she's had a couple issues, where she's walked away from the business, shall we say? Is she doing okay? Do we have any insight? Is she still in Chicago? Is she hanging in there?
Yeah, no, she's still, she's still around. She's she's kind of just doing her own thing now, being a dog mom, which is nice. Their puppy is so sweet. I've seen and talked to her a couple times, at least in the last couple months, and every time I see her, she's always smiling. She's never not smiling.
It's not a gimmick. It is
No,
a
it's
shoot.
not.
It is a shoot. Yeah.
But no, she's doing good, and just like always asking about like, oh, how's your family? How's this person? How's that person? How's your girlfriend? Like, and she looks like she's happy and doing well. So
yeah,
hopefully we do get to see her come back to wrestling at some point. I mean, I think everybody kind of hopes that, but
yeah, I mean, we've had her on, and Brian and I both are huge fans of hers, and you obviously want what's best for her. If being in that business is not what's best for her as a person, then so be it. But I mean, she's an amazing talent, a phenomenal talent. And I think, we've said it a million times. She's got that John Cena gene that she could be that, she could be that superstar. So if it's meant to be, if it's not meant to be, then, so be it. As long as she's happy, her and Isaiah are happy, then that's the most important thing. So, all right, we're dreadfully low on time. Before I let you go, I got to know, what is your favorite junk food? The Tournament of Junk is coming up. Munch Madness is coming up in a couple weeks, where everybody votes on Doritos versus, Kit Kats. So what is Matt Nick's favorite junk food?
Oh man. I guess like my go-to normally would be probably Cool Ranch Doritos.
All right.
But I think like recently I would definitely have to say, oh man, this is kind of tough. I don't know. Oh, these they're like Japanese Kit Kats, but they have like green tea ones.
Oh, the matcha. The matcha Kit Kats.
The one of my coworkers gave me some that were pomegranate flavored.
Okay.
And those, he gave me a whole bag of them, and they're just like, I'm like, man, I don't even like pomegranates, but these are incredible.
All right, just pro tip. There is H Mart, the Japanese grocery store in the Loop. It's on Jackson downtown. They have about 8 different types of Japanese Kit Kats, and I think pomegranate might be one. I think there's a cheesecake one. So if you're ever downtown on Jackson at H Mart, you can pick up some really obscure, weird, like matcha, the Kit Kats. So they have those too. So, all right, we're going to let you go. Where can people find Matt Nick's merchandise? Where can they find your podcasts? Where can they watch Freelance?
Well, we'll start with the most important thing first. To watch Freelance, you can, if you're not already a subscriber to IWTV, you could sign up using the promo code Freelance to get a free week trial. And on there is literally every single show we've ever had. And when we start doing shows again live, they'll be live streamed on there, so you can watch them from home if you don't live in Chicago, or even if you do. And not even just Freelance, but there is a ton of other really good wrestling content on there. So even if you don't even care about Freelance, definitely check out IWTV for something, because you'll definitely find something you like on there. For me, I mean, we have a YouTube channel. Just search Freelance Wrestling on there. I post a lot of free content. I started a Twitch channel, which is really just me for now, but I'm going to have a lot of other wrestlers on there in the future, working on this, the way to set it up where I'm going to be able to stream. I have every single wrestling game that's ever been made for the Nintendo 64.
Okay.
So we're going to do a bunch of like wrestlers playing different wrestling games. Wrestlers playing wrestling is what I'm going to call it. And that'll be fun. But Freelance Wrestling on Twitch. And for me, I guess the Matt Nicks on Twitter, TheMattKnicks. And my podcast is called My Violet Tendencies. And that's available everywhere that podcasts are, I believe.
And you have a Pro Wrestling Tees store, I'm sure.
Oh yes, Pro Wrestling
for your
Tees,
merch.
For merchandise needs for both Freelance and Matt Nicks as well. A lot of purple shirts. Recently just put out the PWO Purple World Order. It's something that's happening.
And the funny thing is, if you order a Matt Knicks shirt, Matt Knicks may be making your Matt Knicks shirt.
Oh yeah, I've made a couple of my own, which is hilarious.
It's got to be surreal. So, all right, we're out of time, man. Thanks so much for coming back. Thank you, listeners. It's been great. The audio on this will be going up in a couple days. And don't forget, I have fun everywhere I go.
Woo, peace.
Good job, guys. I loved it. Yeah, you can see my dog out the. You see the dog out the door. Look at him.
I thought for sure we were going to get your dog, Nick.
Oh,
half the stuff you post is your dog too, the Chihuahua.
Oh, he's pissed at me. I gave him a bath today, and then he had to go outside and piss. So he's really pissed right now. He don't even want to talk to me. He's like, no, we're not talking. So how do we get on the Pro Wrestling's Tee store? How do we get?
I think I could send you the link for the sign up.
Okay.
I think it's pretty simple now. I think it literally is just like I think you just pay $70 to sign up, and then you're good to go.
It used to be like, this big long thing, and you had to have
I don't know
you had to have this many followers and blah blah blah, and you could only have so many shirts. So we don't sell a lot of shirts, but we have a lot of designs. That's it's normal with podcasting anyway.
Hey.
So I have I'm trying to get a hold of Robert Anthony to do the fourth part because we do 4 interviews. We had Kirby, Castro, and now you as the third one.
Let me text him right now because I definitely forgot to message him. But I'm sure he'd be down, especially if I'm like, for freelance. He's usually pretty good about stuff.
Because I've reached out to James Drake, and the most recent response I got from him today was because we got to record it either Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. And Drake said, I'll do my best. I'm like, oh, dude. So I would love to get either one of them or both. I mean, I've got something all set to go for Drake. I've got all the questions and stuff ready to go. And we've had Anthony on a couple times anyway. So, but yeah, for Robert Anthony, that'd be awesome too. Because we've had Frank on and he was great too. So it'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, I just texted him right now. So I'll let you know when he hits me back up, and I'll make him do it.
You can either email me. You've got my email now, back and forth, or even the Twitter message I sent you earlier today. Whatever works out. I emailed him, and I even said, we'll donate because I know that one children's charity is really important to him. So I said we'll buy shirts or we'll donate to that, whatever. If it helps out as far as getting you on the show. So whatever he wants to do, we can do it. So.
Okay.
That was great. I appreciate your honesty on everything. So I didn't get to about half of it. I was going to ask about the Warped Tour where you guys beat up Santa Claus.
Oh, well, we could do a part 2 if you need more people. I'm definitely down.
Well, we're actually still recording. There's a Patreon. We do a Patreon, so people are still hearing some of this stuff.
What up, Patreon peeps?
Yeah, there's about a dozen or so. So you guys beat up Santa Claus at the Warped Tour a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, so we did the Warped Tour show, and it was like just like a dream of mine to be like, we're gonna do Warped Tour, and it ended up being a terrible fucking day. It was so hot, like it was like over 100 degrees, and Marty Scurll was there because God, I don't even remember why. Like he just was. I think he was in the United States for something. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, it'd be so funny to do Mustafa Ali versus Marty Scurll at Warped Tour just for the heck of it. And I ended up getting him booked on AAW that night too, because I hit up Danny and I'm just like, yo, I'm going to bring him to do this. Like, do you want to just use him on your show? Like literally, like you're basically getting him for like nothing, and it's for a paid audience, and mine is just for people that don't care.
That are drunk.
Yeah, and he was down, but he like almost got like heat stroke that day. It was crazy. Yeah. And but we knew through a buddy of ours, we knew the tour manager for the band 4 Year Strong, which is like a pretty high profile pop punk band. And he was like, yo, we're gonna do this bit because like the band is like huge wrestling fans, and they love Freelance too, because like we did a bit with them on stage at the Bottom Lounge before we even ran there, and I gave them every single Freelance show on DVD. I was like, here you guys go, because they watch wrestling on the bus. And so they were like, yo, like, we're gonna do this bit on stage where Santa Claus is gonna come on stage, which was the tour manager, and he's throwing presents into the crowd, and then me and Craig as Beta come out, and we just like, I hit Santa Claus with a chair, and we just start beating him up, and I'm like yelling at the crowd, and it's like a sea of people. And then like Tom Juba, he's an indie worker from New York area, he came out, and because he's friends with the band as well, so he was there. He beats up me. Castro comes down and beats up Craig. They toss us out, and I think Cody Rice was there too, and he does like his hip swivel on stage with Santa Claus, and it's like it was a really fun experience, like weird, really weird.
Yeah, definitely. It was a surreal clip to find that one. So, and then the other thing I had that we didn't get to was you've been to a number of WrestleMania weekends as for the most part as a fan, but I think you've worked some of them too. And you've worked a lot of the StarCast weekends and the All In and All Out, like you talked about. What are some of the more memorable moments either as a fan or as one of the boys that stand out from some of those big, clusterfuck weekends where everybody's there?
Well, the first time I ever went to WrestleMania was for WrestleMania 30, which just in itself was such an incredible show to see live, like considering like all the historical moments now that have come out of that show. And it was funny because we drove down. It was me, Castro, Kylie Rae, and like another buddy of ours, Joe, that like we just knew each other. I think this was before Kylie had even started training to wrestle.
Wow.
And we just knew her as like as one of our buddies' friends. And so we drove down to New Orleans from Chicago, and just like being like in a new city for the first time, and just kind of like, seeing, I found a stray dog and I like kept it for a day, and like I gave it to a guy at the fire department. Like we brought it there because I didn't want to bring him to a shelter.
Yeah.
And one of the other firemen was actually just like,